Welcome back and good morning, Central Oregon. With gardening season upon us, there are certain plants and shrubs that you do not want to plant in your garden, particularly if you have pets. Joining me this morning, Dr. Byron Maas from Bend Veterinary Clinic. Good morning.
Good morning. It's great to see you.
Well, it's great to see you too.
Yeah.
And there are so many people getting into gardening, getting back into gardening, all of that. There are plants that we can plant that are pretty toxic to pets. Right.
There's actually a range of plants, and depending on the time of the year that they can be toxic, and then the types of plants that can be out there. And so we see, like just on a few minutes ago on your show, you had a gardener on there talking about onions. Mm-hmm. And onions actually are a fantastic thing, especially in the spring garden like he was talking about, but they are something that's particularly toxic to animals. More specific to cats and dogs, a little bit to livestock, but they have to eat a whole lot of them. Mm-hmm. So onions are particularly toxic to cats, and it's a cumulative effect. And so he was talking about planting the little starts and the shoots and things like that. Mm-hmm. Well, the thing to watch out for is if your animals are digging them up and then potentially eating them, that's where you're going to have a problem. And cats, because they don't need very much over time, it can build up and cause a particular kind of a toxin that actually causes them to get anemic. Mm-hmm. So the sulfur compound in there is bad. And potatoes and tomatoes are something that, it's a staple in Central Oregon gardens. We don't usually think of tomatoes and potatoes as being a toxin. They're actually all in the same family as nightshade, which is definitely a wild plant that's actually toxic. And so the green growing tomatoes, so the foliage, the stems, the leaves, and then the green tomatoes are the toxic principle in cats and dogs, and a little bit to goats. The same thing with potatoes. The tuber itself, it's actually in the nightshade family, is not particularly toxic, but when it turns green, so when it's exposed to light, or if it's potentially spoiled, that's going to be toxic to chickens, cats and dogs as well, and again to livestock.
Other things like garlic and rhubarb.
Yeah, exactly.
Also, and then potential fruit trees.
Right. So again, you don't usually think about fruit trees as being an issue. The fruit trees that we worry about are primarily the apples, the prune family, so plums, prunes, cherries, apricots, and peaches. All of those are potential toxins, and the toxic principle is actually a cyanide compound. It's in the seeds, and so the little apple seeds, the pits, and the plums and the peaches. Mm-hmm. And then also, more particularly when you're doing your pruning, it's in the foliage and in the bark. And so when you're, it's more concentrated in wilted trees or wilted plants, and it seems to build up there.
We're running out of time, and I want to make sure we get everything in. What about flowers?
The big flowers at springtime we have to worry about. Lilies are particularly toxic to cats. Only toxic to cats. The toxic principle is not known. Daffodils and tulips, I mean, that's a perfect thing happening right now. Fall crocus is another one. And one of the things that he had mentioned that I want to touch upon is the things that we put in with the bulbs and the shrubs and things like that actually as a fertilizer.
Like the bone meal, things like that?
Exactly, the bone meal, the blood meal, the crab meal he was just talking about. All those are going to be something that's going to entice animals to dig them up. And so that's a potential area where you're going to have a rooting problem, potentially eating the bulbs. And then also actually too much of that can be actually injurious to the pets as well.
So if you have pets, probably best to go without that.
Yeah,
and find a different fertilizer.
Keep them out of there.
What about shrubs?
Yeah, there's some shrubs that you have to watch out for. Yew is one that we see around. It's very, very toxic, highly toxic to all animals. That's the sort of evergreen looking plant with the little red berries. All principles or all parts of that plant are actually toxic. They say the berries are not as toxic, but again, just watch out for that one entirely. Azaleas and rhododendrons as another one. That's one of the things that we see. The foliage and the leaves are actually the ones you have to watch out for. And so livestock, goats, llamas, there's been a lot of reported deaths with those. Are
there any native plants that are toxic?
Yeah, there's some really, actually one of the North America's most toxic plant, death camas. It's actually a native species. It's a bulb, and actually one bulb, digging it up, it looks very similar to onion, and one bulb will actually kill pets and people.
And it's called death camas.
It's called death camas.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. So it's actually a bulb that has these kind of little flowerlets that come up. Poison hemlock or western hemlock is another one. And with our irrigation practices, that actually is in our ditches. And so it'll get out there. It's a tuber. It looks like carrot, or we call it wild parsley or wild carrot. Again, extremely toxic. Kids have a tendency to pick it because it's hollow, and they'll use it for whistles. Again, one small bit of that is actually deadly.
What can we do if we fear that our pets have ingested something dangerous?
The best thing to do is to contact your veterinarian immediately, or the Animal Poison Control Center with American Society prevention of animals.
And that is, that's 888-426-4435. And make sure you want to have a good idea of what your pet has ingested.
Right, exactly.
Not just, my pet's not breathing.
Right, yeah. So all the symptoms are going to be like vomiting, diarrhea, drooling, sometimes changes in their dilation, discoordination, all kinds of things you'll see like that, muscle tremors, coma, and then on some of these really toxic ones, they'll go straight to death.
Oh my gosh. Best thing is, I mean, we all know our pets, if you feel like something's not right, you're probably correct. So if you have any questions about what Dr. Maas spoke about today or other ways that you can keep your pets safe, 541-382-0741 or BendVeterinaryClinic.com. It was great to see you.
It's great to see you too. Happy gardening out there this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Right now we're going to